Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. We're excited to share with you our most up-to-date information pertaining to ADVI, our virtual advisor. I know we have a few folks on the line who are new to us, so I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Texas OnCourse. Our mission is with Texas OnCourse, all Texas students, no matter where they come from or where they're headed, have a plan for success after high school. All of our materials that we produce and all of the trainings that Texas OnCourse hosts, we always begin with this end in mind, that the work that we are doing is to help our students have a valuable plan after high school. We are a state-funded initiative designed to improve college and career advising and readiness across the state. We were created at the request of the Texas legislator that works in partnership with the governor's Tri-Agency Workforce Initiative. All of these organizations work together to connect education and industry in Texas. The users of our tools include middle and high school counselors, teachers, administrators, and of course, community-based organizations that focus on post-secondary success. We also provide a lot of resources for students and their families. So a few things for this morning's session. All webinars are recorded. As you know, we have already started recording this one. The recording will be sent out to all of our registrants. So if you know a colleague that was not able to make it this morning and registered, no worries, they'll receive the recording as well. And of course, you can always share our webinars and resources afterwards. We also have all of our upcoming and previous webinars posted on our webpage as well as on our YouTube channel. And then after this one, whenever you have time, have a moment, feel free to browse some of our previous topics as well. So our agenda for today, just a quick overview of today's session. We will introduce ourselves briefly, and then Sam Kimmel will share with you our resource spotlight today, which is ADVI, and Shelby will share with you how RSSI leverages ADVI messaging, and we will also have some time at the end of this webinar for a Q&A session. So please add any of your questions to the Q&A box, and we'll be able to answer those at the end of the webinar. It's okay if you put them in the chat. We just might miss some of them as people are inputting them, so it's better to put it in the Q&A. So my name is Andrea Panter. I am the Senior Network Coordinator with Texas OnCourse. I've been with the agency about 1.5 years now. I started my education career a little over 15 years ago as a special education teacher with Teach for America in Houston, Texas. And then I moved back to Austin and worked at Austin Partners in Education as a curriculum specialist and math program manager. And I now have the privilege of working with Sam at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. So my name is Sam Kimmel. Very happy to be here with y'all today. As mentioned, I do work with Andrea here at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. My functional title is Quality and Alignment Coordinator. So I work really closely with a number of products that we produce within the division at the agency, our college and career advising, just to ensure that we're developing content that is super high quality, aligned across our tools and really meeting the needs of our users. And so with that, working very closely with both Texas OnCourse and the ADVI chatbot that we will be speaking about today. And excited to pass it off to Shelby, who is, as mentioned, a partner we work with at the Rural Student Success Initiative.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. My name is Shelby Boehm, and I am an Extension Program Specialist with the Rural Student Success Initiative. My primary role is actually helping our school districts track and collect data throughout the school year. But also our team is very small, so I do dabble in a couple of other things and help our students as well get onboarded into the ADVI platform. But yeah, I'm excited to be here today and to be a part of this panel.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. So we will go ahead and kick it off and provide an overview and some context to help everybody on this call really understand what ADVI is and how it can benefit students. So if you want to go to the next slide. All righty. So to start us off, what exactly is ADVI? At its core, ADVI is an AI-powered chatbot that's designed to deliver critical college and career planning information to Texas students, specifically through a medium that resonates with much of today's youth and, let's be honest, adult populations: text message. The bot is managed by our team here at the Higher Education Coordinating Board, but we work really closely with our vendor Mainstay. And Mainstay is actually the group that provides a lot of the manpower behind the AI element of the chatbot. But as a chatbot, ADVI includes another really critical component, and that's human support. At the coordinating board, we do have a dedicated staff of trained virtual advisors who support students that are using the chatbot if and whenever they need it. And we'll definitely be diving more into that in a bit. Alrighty, and so for a little bit of context setting, this project actually has been in operation for several years now, and initial research and kind of discussions around implementing some sort of AI-powered technology within this field began as early as 2016. And I think that, many of you on the call might agree that, chatbots and discourse around them has really grown in recent years, especially maybe even in the past couple months with the advent of tools like ChatGPT. The coordinating board developed ADVI at a time when chatbots were pretty innovative, and especially as a tool in the higher education sphere. But even so, as these conversations were initially happening, the research around the potential efficacy for this type of technology was honestly like too promising an opportunity to pass up. And so that led to an initial partnership with Advise Texas at UT Austin to pilot this type of technology in 2019. There wasn't a ton of empirical evidence out there for us to work with. And so we were initially targeting two key populations that we knew were critical, but we could also have some level of access to in terms of student contact information. And so that was high school seniors, as well as adult learners who are considered stopouts, or those who had significant college credit, but hadn't earned a credential yet. And moreover, those initial kind of pilot initiatives were regional, working specifically with students, attending high school or colleges within Central Texas, South Texas, and West Texas. The stopout population was actually the first that we targeted. And while this cohort was relatively small, somewhere around 4,500 students, the preliminary results were already promising. Even though overall engagement rates for the chatbot were somewhat low, there was a positive correlation with those students who were actively engaged with the bot. They're defining engagement as student, whether a student had texted back or interacted in some capacity with the chatbot. And specifically, a positive correlation between students who, those who were engaged, taking step to either re-enroll or at least take some sort of significant action, such as reapplying to school, compared to those who were not. I think that the numbers were somewhere around, 21% versus 8%, or 21% of, actively engaged students were re-enrolling versus only 8% of non-actively engaged students re-enrolling. And so that's where we started. But after we received some additional funding, entered phase 2 of our project with a real hope to strategically expand our reach and work with more students across the state. But that phase was disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. But kind of provided an opportunity for us. So through additional funding from a couple of key partners, or the College Advising Corps, as well as funding through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEAR funds, we transitioned the project to the coordinating board officially, and really entered into a phase of moving to more large-scale implementation for high school seniors across the state. The timing here was really critical. The pandemic made it clear that virtual advising offered a relatively unique, as well as safe and cost-effective way for the state of Texas to deliver critical college planning information to students at a time when, new challenges and barriers to educational attainment were on the rise. And we really didn't fully understand what type of impacts the pandemic would have on students. Move on to the next slide. And so, leads to where we are today. Since those initial efforts, we have greatly expanded and have been very successful in that large scale implementation. We'll be looking at a few of those numbers later on. And it's enabled us to continue working with high school seniors, as well as those adult learners who have some college but no credential. We are now at a point where, as mentioned, we have a dedicated support staff of virtual advisors to work with students who are interacting with the chatbot, and we're able to, deliver content regularly to these populations. In addition to that, we have a few other kind of smaller scale projects and partnerships that enable us to reach other audiences. Working with the Rural Student Success Initiative, we're able to target support for high school juniors and seniors, as well as recently graduated seniors who attend rural school districts. They're really trying to focus on how we can leverage ADVI to create a seamless transition from high school to college, and really hopefully see success in persistence through that first year of college. We also have another smaller effort with Advise Texas and the College Advising Corps to support content development, chatbot content development specifically, that is tailored to high school juniors. Right now, piloting this with a new hybrid expansion effort between these groups. So we've continued just growing and expanding and, adding new populations to refine and hone what we're doing here at the agency. And importantly, want to call out, especially for those who may be new to understanding or thinking about using a chatbot through this type of intervention, ADVI is not intended to be a replacement for in-person advising. This is really intended to be a triage tool and some, a real supplemental support for those counselors and advisors on the ground, many of whom are on the call today, working with students. We really want to use ADVI to catch students at super key and critical milestones, make sure they're getting the information they need, and connecting them to, resources, whether that be tools and whatnot on the internet, or actual human support who can really, take it to that next level of support needs beyond ADVI. And on that note, just want to really highlight a couple of the key benefits of using chatbots in this context. First, and importantly, maybe the most obvious piece is that we can meet students where they are at, both literally and metaphorically. Cell phones and text messaging as the primary means of communication is really effective for today's population. Not only that, it's very accessible. Students don't need a really fancy phone or data plan in order to interact with ADVI. And most of our students can send and receive text messages, regardless of their economic status or even geographical status, though there may be some limitations to that. Another huge benefit, and what as mentioned, one of our primary intentions is to really free up advisors and counselors out there, so they're not having to answer tons of common questions, and can really instead focus their support efforts on, maybe advising tougher scenarios or providing really personalized, individualistic attention to the students who need it most. We also, through this just text format, there's character limits, all of that good stuff. So it really forces us to condense and consolidate information and be super strategic about delivering it in bite-sized chunks, small action items, quick reminders that can grab students' attention and keep them engaged with the process on a regular basis. Lastly, and I'll want to touch a bit more on this later, but because we're regularly hearing from students, we're collecting data on the questions they're asking, how they're engaging with campaigns, et cetera. This in turn informs and makes us better advocates. It really makes it easier to understand what students' pain points are, what questions they're really asking and wanting information on. And also we can track what information has an impact on their success. And so I want to dive a bit deeper into how ADVI works. So as a chatbot, ADVI is really made up of 3 central components. The first are weekly proactive campaigns that deliver, reminders and kind of just-in-time information to students. There's also what we would call reactive component that's made up of a knowledge base, which you can think of as ADVI's brain. That's really the AI fueled element of the chatbot, and it's what enables students to get automated responses to questions at any time. And this is also what really fuels ADVI's personality, so to speak, which we'll go into later, students definitely connect with. And then lastly, the very critical component is that team of trained advisors who can offer personalized support and respond daily to students who aren't getting their questions answered by ADVI or who just need some more personalized attention. And so our campaigns, again, these are proactive and they are meant to remind students about upcoming deadlines, specific steps in the college or career planning process. And another huge component of campaigns is that they offer motivational messaging to students. And we really try to focus on empathizing with student concerns and potential barriers they may be facing with access to, college and career planning. We really want to, with proactive messaging, really trying to engage with students, even if they aren't engaging back with us. I think this can be effective as it takes a bit of the onus off students to, be taking that initiative to reach out to someone for help. With ADVI, they don't necessarily need to reach out or ask for help. It's going to get delivered to them as long as they remain opted into the chatbot. And here we have just a couple messages or kind of sample snippets from campaigns that have been delivered previously, so you can get a bit of more context of maybe, how ADVI comes across to students and the type of information we may be sharing. Sometimes, as mentioned, we're really just focusing on providing kind of words of encouragement to students to keep them motivated and strong, persistent throughout this planning process, sharing reminders, but other times we're also really inviting them to engage with the chatbot. prompting them to, text back to get information on the specific questions that are of most interest to them. And here we have just a sample outline, annual campaign outline, subject to change because we are always, oh, sorry, if you could go back one more, Andrea. Subject to change simply for the fact that we're consistently, collecting student input and revising things to best meet student needs. But the campaigns we send to students are intentional, and we're really trying to back them in evidence-based practice, as well as, subject matter knowledge within our program staff of key milestones in the college and career planning process. We do sprinkle other topics into the monthly campaign plans, but keeping a central theme like this helps ground us and ensure that we're addressing the most essential information when students need it and when in time for them to take appropriate action. We also have a few other types of campaigns. At times we may send additional messaging to help navigate a critical challenge, such as FAFSA verification, or we may invite students to submit their own questions, a kind of ask an advisor campaign, providing that open floor and kind of safe space. Or we may be, sending them what we call pulse surveys. So quick check-ins to better understand where they are in different areas of the college and career planning process. For example, have you completed an college application? Are you still working on it, et cetera? And that type of information enables us to really segment future campaigns to where students are at, so that they, are only getting the information that's relevant or as relevant as possible to their particular post-secondary planning journey. Alrighty, and so, on top of those campaigns, as mentioned, there's also this more reactive component, as well as the human support. So students get that, help from both the AI element of ADVI as well as our team of human advisors. Students can text ADVI anytime to get answers to those questions. The knowledge base is super robust, that being ADVI's brain, so to speak, with an advanced algorithm, and we are consistently, zeroing in on how we can better refine and improve this element of the chatbot to ensure students are getting matched to the right information. But when they can't, or when it just simply isn't enough, given limitations of technology, students really can easily connect with an advisor to get that extra support. And our advisors are frequently answering questions related to maybe tough advising scenarios, as well as providing, some institution-specific responses. I think that this can be a particularly helpful element for those of you on the ground. We know that college, school counselors and other college and career advisors, y'all are very busy and may not have capacity all the time to scour the internet to get all the answers you need to XYZ WAB college, and that is what our team really is trying to provide. Doing that kind of research on everybody's behalf to make sure we can connect students to the financial aid office at a certain college, or explain the orientation process at a different college. And also, they're just stepping in to maybe provide clarification on a certain advising topic or certain step, and direct them to any sort of additional resources, including human resources at, whether that be directing students back to school counselors to check in, get information they need, update them on their process or where they are in the college planning process, or connecting them with someone at an institution, just to get the most accurate and up-to-date information that could be given. And so, as mentioned, going back to our benefits here of how through the chatbot, we're actually collecting input from students that can help inform and make us better advocates. And so, one of those areas is we're able to collect data on those frequently addressed topics and understand what are students, what type of questions are students asking. And here I have a couple of examples of some of our most frequently addressed topics. And this actually is, reflecting like in real time, the past 90 days, what were students asking about? Whether it's directly to ADVI or in terms of how, what areas they're following up with our advisors on. And so that may be right now, college applications, scholarships, admissions decisions, FAFSA verification, general support for financial aid. And all of this helps inform, what type of revisions we're making to the knowledge base, how can we make ADVI better at answering student questions, what might we need to do to revise our campaign plans to better meet student needs. Are there additional features or tools we could explore given, high student need? The scholarship bot, for example, is a feature we've been working with Mainstay on for that, again, is our vendor. And they are actually the proprietor of this scholarship bot, but, tried piloting it this year with our students and an AI powered, super robust scholarship match tool. So, we heard from students that was a need and knew we needed to deliver on it. And importantly, given our position at the agency, this is also a great way to make sure that student feedback is getting brought into other tools and products that we manage, including Texas OnCourse and the Texas OnCourse Academy. How can we ensure our learning modules capture what students are asking about?
Hey, Sam, if you have a moment, I'm going to allow Michelle to ask a question really quick.
Sure.
Michelle, you should be able to
Hi,
speak.
Yep. My internet's not the best, so just let me know if it breaks up. I think you covered part of this already. I was quick to put it out before you had started talking about institution-specific responses, but my question was, so I guess just confirming, once a student selects a college, when they're doing all the transitional steps, like all of the summer tasks, making sure financial aid's applied to their bill, clearing any lingering verification flags, that ADVI is programmed with the campus-specific information so that if I'm planning to go to A&M and I text ADVI with a question about the vax policy, the response I'll get will be specific to A&M because ADVI knows from our previous conversations that that's where I'm going. Is that accurate?
So that is a great question. And I'm glad you asked because I was going to go into a bit detail, but might not have fully explained it based on just kind of how you phrase that. So yes, and somewhat no. There are just some limitations with how we're collecting student data and kind of incorporating it back into the tool. But so for the institution-specific responses, a student can always, follow up, connect with one of our advisors, and they will, go ahead and research information related to the student's question, try to get them what they need and direct them back to the institution as applicable. However, we're actually in the middle and still kind of working on the implementation piece of this, which is why I hesitate just to incorporate institution-specific responses into the chatbot. It would be great if it were as simple as kind of turning on these responses, but we are relying on students to self-report their college of intent, but we're actually in the process of rolling that out. So within the next couple of months, students working with a bot should be getting college-specific information. So if they ask, how do I sign up for orientation? As long as we have in the student's profile that they are a potential Texas A&M student, that response will specifically be tailored to A&M's, forget the example I already gave, orientation policy, if that was the example I just gave. So hopefully that answers your question there.
It does. And then it sounds like you're also saying the second part of my question was, in that scenario, when the student needs to, if they need to talk to an advisor, the advisor they're talking to is still their ADVI advisor. It's not like both ADVI advisors and all the colleges are sort of sharing the population of students as they transition. The student is always talking to the same sort of pool of advisors who are looking up the information for them and coaching them if they need to interface directly with the campus for something. Is that accurate?
Correct. At least at this time, yes, that is how it works. Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that and hope that might have clarified things for other folks. Andre, you can move on to the next slide and I will. So here, just kind of looking at, some of our effectiveness and some of the high level numbers, have some data from the class of 2022 specifically. So this was again collected from October 2021 through August 2022 for that school year, which was really the second year of like full large scale implementation for the chatbot. We were aiming to reach 200,000 students. Ended up working with more than 237,000. I think we actually messaged about 250,000. And then this reflects just those who actually provided a valid phone number. And we were able to successfully reach. The bot sent them over 27 million messages through campaigns and just responding to student queries, while students sent in over 728,000 messages, and over 23,000 of those were actually messages escalated to our wonderful team of virtual advisors. And we were very pleased to find that of our students, 64% of them were actively engaged, meaning they had actually interacted with a chatbot. Our goal for that year was 30% active engagement. And I don't have the numbers to quote, but I know from speaking with others in kind of this field, it's, much higher than the average type of engagement with a chatbot like this, which really tells us this is working and, having a positive impact on the students we serve. And we can go on to the next slide here. So in addition to, the hard data we collect, what really brings it home for me is the qualitative piece and that type of data we're collecting. We survey students through the chatbot a couple of times a year to understand, what's working and what isn't. And here are just a couple of quick examples of some of the high points and that type of feedback we get from students. We do hear a lot. There seems to be a benefit in the AI component. A lot of this is built in, and I won't go into too much explanation, but what we consider like a parasocial relationship. Students really develop a friendship with the bot, thanks to, in part, it's the personality we develop through campaigns and the AI component of the chatbot. They appreciate the reminders and, we hear a lot that they appreciate the kind of motivational messages that we send and how we help kind of normalize where students are in the process and what they might be feeling around that. And we can go ahead and move on. Thank you. And just quickly, I kind of touched on this a bit, but, want to emphasize how we are consistently using data to really improve and kind of retool what we're doing. We collect those text-based surveys for ongoing feedback and just-in-time improvements. That's actually what led to, the kind of institution-specific responses that we've been working on. That was straight from feedback from our students and monitoring trends in engagement rates throughout the year. And we also work with a third-party evaluator at the University of Texas at San Antonio, their Urban Education Institute. And they've been for several years now working on studies around student perception and satisfaction with both the chatbot and advisor interactions. And that definitely heavily drives our strategy for how we implement this program and this tool. And then, of course, we are, taking a look at some of the hard data, so to speak, monthly, to really understand different levels and types of student engagement and how we can better meet student needs. That ties again into that kind of campaign segmentation, looking at how we can better tailor information to where students are at specifically, to keep them, seeing this chatbot is useful for them. And a bit of a transition here, but I imagine some of you at least may be wondering how exactly can my students engage or get involved with ADVI. So right now, and I will speak specifically to our high school seniors, that is our primary audience at this time, though we would love to be supporting students on a large scale implementation much earlier than this, outside of those kind of pilot efforts I mentioned at the start of this presentation. But right now, students opt in through Apply Texas. And it's pretty simple, but may not always be intuitive. I will be the first to admit, so happy to have y'all on the call learning about it. So as students are creating a profile, that is a necessary component of it. They do need to just create their profile. And on the very last page of the profile, college history, there's a question that I'll show a screenshot in just a second, that they'll need to check yes to receive texts from Apply Texas and its partners. And I know you may ask the question, why doesn't it call out ADVI? I am not going to dive into that one. That is above my pay grade, so to speak. So just know that there is a question about receiving texts. Students need to check it. And then all they need to do is really start a freshman application to a 2-year or 4-year college. The freshman component being the most important. That first year in college application type is going to route students to ADVI. After that, there's some work being done on the back end, but the student should receive their first text from ADVI within a week, as long as they provide a valid phone number. And I do want to call out that, yes, this can be done when students are setting up their profile, but if you're working with students who, they created a profile a while ago, they didn't opt in, they've already completed all of their college applications, no problem. Students can go and at any time update their consent preferences, and our data team at the agency, we do have systems in place so that as soon as students, hit consent, if they have a completed application, we're still going to get that information and we'll still be able to reach out to them through ADVI. So that can happen. It doesn't need to happen up front. And there is the question, just again, highlighting it. It's what it looks like. So hopefully if you are working with students at, say, an Apply Texas, overview session with parents, students, or you're at a, maybe it's even a FAFSA completion event, a school assembly, etc. Hopefully you can, recognize this question and feel comfortable guiding students towards checking yes to get opted in. It's really easy to opt out at any time should students not find it relevant to them. So, pretty easy in and out. And I think I actually just saw a question related to this popped up in the chat, but I could be wrong. So Andrea, if you wouldn't mind skipping to the next slide there. We do have a couple of promotional materials available. One is just a counselor welcome letter, and the other, some just sample language that could be used in different mediums, like a school newsletter, a school text service, Twitter, Facebook, etc., to spread the word about ADVI. And these materials are available on our website. And I think that we are sharing links to these two resources now. So thank you, Lauren. If Lauren is on the call and doing that, I'm just speaking from what I assume is happening, but
I am here. I'm here.
Thank you, Lauren. And Andrea, if you want to go to the next one. So next slide, that is, apologies. So again, we do on our website, askadvi.org. There is a counselors tab. You can go directly from this link. And there's some additional information for counselors, as well as links to these resources should you lose track of them and need to get to them in the future. We're in the process of making some other changes to the ADVI website, but there is other information that, might be useful to you or to your students in terms of, how students can get the most out of ADVI or chat with ADVI most effectively, frequently asked questions that we hear from users, etc. So that is all I have brought today, and I'm going to go ahead for timing's sake and transition it over to Shelby, but happy to jump in and respond to questions I can answer through the Q&A or circle back at the end.
Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. Awesome. And Shelby, yes, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Well, I guess just to get started, I wanted to give everybody kind of an idea of what the Rural Student Success Initiative was initially started out to be. So just to give everybody kind of a basic understanding of what RSSI, you're going to commonly hear me say, is. We are a large-scale demonstration project that was, began around 2018, and it was initially funded by the Greater Texas Foundation, the Temple Foundation, Meadows, and Trellis. And really the idea so this project sits at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. So if you are familiar with Extension, you probably have heard our involvement in a lot of agricultural related topics, but AgriLife Extension does so much more beyond just agriculture. We do, of course, RSSI, as well as a lot of youth topics and healthy living, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea is that this organization has a county, a presence in almost every single county in the state of Texas. So we're leveraging our existing county-based platform to implement a program that seeks to increase the access for rural students to post-secondary education. And not only do we want to get them to college, but we want to get them to persist as well as complete some type of post-secondary credential within 6 years of graduating high school. If you want to go to the next slide. Just some quick facts about where we are in the state of Texas. So currently right now, we started with serving 9 school districts, but we have since expanded. Currently, we serve 22 school districts across 20 counties throughout the state of Texas, as you can see on that map to the left. You can see that we have a presence in pretty much all geographic regions, north, south, east, and west. And across those 22 school districts, we serve about 6,700 students, grades 8 through 12th, which is pretty mind-boggling if you're from a very large school district. We have some school districts that are as large comparatively, they probably have about 150 students a class, and with our smallest being about 10 students a class, which is pretty wild to think about. But since we began this initiative, we began partnering with ADVI, and currently today we have served about 1,700 high school juniors, seniors, and first year in college students. So currently those are the students that are receiving ADVI. And through this collective effort with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and our partnership with ADVI as being a part of what we do on the ground. Our program, our external evaluators have found that our program has increased FAFSA completion about 6.1% in comparison to school districts who do not have RSSI or rural school districts. We're currently still seeing results from college enrollment, but we are seeing an increase in college enrollment among our school districts in comparison to those who do not have RSSI on their campus. And we're specifically seeing that that increase among male and Hispanic students that we serve. So getting into how we began this partnership with ADVI. We began this partnership around the summer of 2020. And if we all remember what happened in the summer of 2020, the world shut down. So the implementation of ADVI with our program has definitely been it's been a slow, getting students onboarded has been a slow process, but this year I think we've really amped up the amount of students that are enrolled and opted into our ADVI platform, which I think is great to see. And the goal of this partnership was really to provide some critical college access and retention support for students beginning their junior year through their first year in high school. So I guess the ideal was if we get students started in their junior year with the bot and transition them through their senior as well as first year in high school, they would engage with the bot a lot more versus trying to get them onboarded, later or right before they graduate high school. You want to go to the next slide. So really getting into the nitty gritty on how RSSI leverages ADVI messaging. And I know this is probably going to get, I know this is probably specific to this partnership, but there are, I think, a lot of opportunities for you to leverage ADVI on your campus as well. The primary way we use ADVI is with our program, we have what we call a college access framework, which is a set of critical milestones that begins in a student's 8th grade year that they should complete up until their senior year. So for example, kind of in our earlier grade levels, it's a lot about career exploration, college exploration, knowing what financial aid is, and giving them that basic knowledge of what to expect when we move into their junior and senior years. It's more about preparing. So getting those essays ready, applying to college, and completing the financial aid form. So when, for example, this is actually what we're doing right now, is we've noticed a lot of our campuses are really focusing in on those local scholarships. And so we're pushing messaging out to those students about how to write an effective scholarship essay. And so really reinforcing what they're hearing on the campus from their counselor is one way that we've seen students really engage through this partnership. The second way that we've used ADVI messaging, and this really began during the pandemic, was we promote virtual office hours. So in addition to myself, I have a coworker who is a college access specialist, so he's more of our content creator on this project. But during, critical times, so like, during the fall semester, we might send out a message to sign up for office hours with our college access specialist. I know in the past, some of our ADVI partners have stepped in as well to help with that. But that is one way that we've promoted or used or leveraged the messaging that these students are seeing. The third way that we've used ADVI messaging is through school district event promotion. So if we know that one of our school districts is doing a FAFSA night, we might send out a flyer just to those specific students through the chat bot. And then lastly, this is probably my favorite one, but we also, for some of our junior level students, we really push out some career exploration, and we really segment it by region. Because one thing that we've learned in this project is rural South Texas is not the same as rural East Texas. So really trying to customize it as much as we can, so that students are getting something relevant. But yeah, oh, sorry. But yeah, so an example of that really is, looking at that for that career exploration, we're pushing out messaging. For example, in South Texas, we see a lot of wind turbine part industry building up. And so we might send something out like that to our South Texas students. In our East Texas areas, we see a lot of healthcare as being a high demand industry in that region. And so we might push something out like that to those students. So those are just a couple of examples of how we use ADVI. I think, just through this partnership, most of our students have enjoyed using ADVI. Some of them even might, I think for the campuses that have a really high engagement, I think it's because the counselor really reinforces that messaging. So they're not only hearing it from the school staff, but they're also hearing it from their cell phone now. So those are just some quick examples. And if y'all have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of questions coming through in the chat, and the Q&A. So we'll go ahead and pause here for a second, and I'll read some of those through, Sam, if you're able to answer some of those.
Yeah, sure. And I know I just was responding to a few, so I can definitely jump in here on a couple that caught my attention. And I would love to just clarify. So I know many of you, I assume, are interested, just given my own experience in the college access field of, getting juniors involved in this. And so do want to clarify that at this time, we don't have a means for students to opt in at the start of their junior year outside of juniors who are involved with these specific groups we're partnering with, be that the Rural Student Success Initiative, or mentioned at the top of the presentation, Advise Texas hybrid advising schools. We definitely recognize the need for it, and would love to get there in the near term, and are hoping to do so. A lot of it has to do with kind of opt-in methods and management, knowing there are some limitations, for example, to having Apply Texas as our primary opt-in method. It also comes with some major benefits, but we definitely recognize the limitations to that, and are trying to figure out how we can, retool implementation efforts and capacity to accommodate that. Because again, it's something we'd really like to be able to deliver on. And I know there were a couple of kind of related questions. I guess also, I think I answered this in the chat already, or maybe Andrea, you did, but ADVI is free for students. It's also for them to message it, and it is also available to any high school senior in the state. They do need to opt in through Apply Texas, but beyond that, there are no restrictions to, where the student is at. There's going to be that kind of automated process of once they complete those steps of updating their consent preferences in their Apply Texas profile and having at least some application started or even completed, it's going to be available to them, and they will be, engaged with the chatbot through those means.
Sam, we also had a question from Pam. Do you have a timeline for when ADVI will be integrated with other Texas OnCourse tools?
That is a great question. Difficult to speak to like a firm timeline, especially, I guess, in terms of what we mean when we say that integration. We are actively working on getting ADVI incorporated from like a chatbot standpoint into some other tools that are in development right now, to really expand our reach to students, the reach of ADVI to students through them. That should be implemented within the next one or two, like within the next school year or the following school year. But in terms of kind of integrating ADVI and in the sense of capturing that student feedback or, explaining what it is or promoting, we do have some information in, our other tools like Texas OnCourse or the academy that is, or Tomorrow Ready Texas, our tool designed for families. But both tools are themselves continuously getting enhanced and information is getting added, and we're continually looking for ways to really plug ADVI more in that sense and make sure information is there. And then I know I saw a question both in the chat and from the Q&A from Jenny about, the cost. And it definitely, it is not a cheap effort. I will be frank, there are costs associated with just managing the technology component. And when you're bringing in support staff, such as advisors, we have other team members supporting this, including myself. It definitely can get costly. We were fortunate enough, given the timing of this kind of large scale implementation, to rely on grant funding through like GEAR funds to kick us off. But really working to secure funding as a state agency, through even this active legislative session to continue funding the program moving forward and keep it active over time. And I know our commissioner here at the Higher Education Coordinating Board does understand, the real promise and effectiveness that this tool can have on students. And so, is personally invested in ensuring we fight for the funding that is needed to make this chatbot, a reality in this program, a reality. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and Sam, we can meet with Jenny further because she is in a unique situation, so we can continue this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think we've answered most of the questions. So if you guys don't mind, just taking our next monthly webinar, I know we're wrapping up quick, but our next monthly webinar is on May 9th. And we'll be talking about college and career knowledge assessments. And I'm going to skip through that just so we can hopefully get some of your feedback today. It really is important for us to be able to continue to give you all the most up-to-date and relevant information. So if you don't mind just scanning that QR code on the next page, it's only 4 questions. It won't take you long. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording. But we'll also hang back if there's any other questions that people have.
One quick question, Andrea, just because I saw it and I